The Forsaken Consort and the Wolf General. Chapter 1. When Leon first entered the imperial palace, he thought beauty was a curse. At 16, he had been chosen as a royal consort because of his face. Not because of power, not because of talent, not because the emperor loved him. Just beauty, pale skin, long black hair, gentle eyes, the kind of face poets wrote tragedies about. And tragedies were exactly what followed him. 3 years after entering the palace, Leon became the most hated consort in the empire. Not because he was cruel, but because the emperor ignored him. In the palace, being unloved was worse than being dead. Servants mocked him openly. Other consorts sabotaged his meals. Ministers called him useless behind silk sleeves. And the emperor never once visited his palace. Not once. At 19 years old, Leon lived alone in a freezing, abandoned courtyard at the edge of the palace grounds. The roof leaked when it rained. His robes were old. His meals were cold. Even the palace dogs ate better than him. Still, Leon endured quietly, because surviving quietly was the only thing he knew how to do, until the day the Wolf General returned from war. The entire capital shook with celebration. Citizens crowded the streets. Lanterns filled the sky. Children threw flower petals from rooftops, while nobles rushed to greet the empire's greatest military hero, General Kang Hyun, the emperor's most trusted sword. The Mad Wolf of the North, a man feared across kingdoms. Rumors claimed he once slaughtered 300 enemy soldiers alone during a snowstorm. Others claimed he ripped a man's throat out with his teeth. Leon personally thought those rumors sounded ridiculous. No human can do that. Unfortunately, he accidentally said that out loud. A deep voice answered behind him. "You seem disappointed." Leon nearly dropped his tray. He turned and froze. Tall, broad shoulders wrapped in black, fur-lined armor. Long dark hair tied carelessly behind his back. A scar across one brow. Sharp eyes that looked more beast than man. General Kang Hyun stood in the palace corridor staring directly at him. Leon's soul practically left his body, because firstly he had insulted the empire's war hero. Secondly, the general was terrifyingly handsome. And thirdly, where Leon was currently holding a tray of spilled soup because he'd panicked. Wonderful. Just wonderful. Leon hurriedly lowered himself. "This consort greets General Kang." The general glanced at the soup on the floor. "You were bringing dinner?" Leon quietly nodded. "For yourself?" "Yes." Kang Hyun frowned slightly. The tray only held plain rice, wilted vegetables, and weak broth. Food barely worthy of servants. The general's expression darkened. Even soldiers on winter battlefields ate better than this. Leon noticed the look immediately and smiled awkwardly. "It's enough." Kang Hyun stared at him for a long moment. Then suddenly, "Eat with me." Leon blinked. "What?" "I dislike eating alone." The statement was clearly nonsense. The general could dine with nobles, ministers, even the emperor himself. Yet somehow he was asking the forgotten consort nobody cared about. Leon immediately shook his head. "That would be improper." Kang Hyun stepped closer. "You're refusing a general who just returned from war?" "That sounds like blackmail." "It is." Leon stared at him in disbelief. Then for the first time in months, she laughed. A small laugh. Soft, real. And Kang Hyun suddenly forgot how to breathe. Chapter 2. After that night, the general kept appearing everywhere. At first, Leon thought it was coincidence. Then it became suspicious. Then deeply concerning. Because somehow the empire's greatest military commander kept showing up wherever Leon happened to be. Leon fed stray cats near the outer palace wall. Kang Hyun appeared. Leon visited the Lotus Garden. Kang Hyun appeared. Leon tried hiding in the library. The general was already there, reading upside down. "General." "Yes?" "Why are you here?" Kang Hyun calmly turned a page. "I enjoy books." Leon stared at the upside-down text. "You can't even read that page." "I can if I try hard enough." That's not how reading works. The general looked completely shameless, and somehow Leon found it funny instead of frightening, which was dangerous. Very dangerous, because Leon had learned long ago not to trust kindness in the palace. Kindness always came with a price. Always. Yet Kang Hyun never asked him for anything. The general simply stayed beside him, quietly, protectively, like a massive wolf pretending not to guard someone. Unfortunately, the palace noticed, and palace rumors spread faster than fire, especially among jealous consorts. One afternoon, Leon's path was blocked by consort Min, the emperor's favorite. Beautiful, cruel, and rich enough to ruin lives for entertainment. Consort Min smiled coldly. I heard the wolf general has taken interest in you. Leon lowered his gaze. The general is simply kind. Kind? Min laughed softly. A man like Kang Hyun does not look at others kindly. Leon stayed silent, because honestly, he didn't know what Kang Hyun wanted either. Consort Min stepped closer. You should know your place before embarrassing yourself. Leon's fingers tightened slightly. There it was, the reminder. The palace never allowed forgotten people to dream. Not of love, not of happiness, not of anything. Leon quietly bowed. This consort understands. Min smirked victoriously until a cold voice suddenly echoed behind them. No! Everyone froze. Kang Hyun stood beneath the corridor entrance, eyes sharp enough to kill. You understand nothing. Even consort Min paled, because while palace consorts feared the emperor, the empire feared Kang Hyun. The general walked forward slowly, each step heavy against the stone floor. Then he stopped beside Leon, protectively close, dangerously close, and looked directly at consort Min. If I hear you insult him again, Kang Hyun said calmly, you'll pray for exile instead. Silence. Absolute silence. Consort Min immediately lowered himself, trembling. This consort apologizes. Kang Hyun didn't even look at him again. Instead, he turned toward Leon. Did he upset you? Leon blinked slowly. Nobody had ever asked him that before. Not once. And somehow that hurt more than the insults ever did. Chapter 3. That night, Leon cried quietly for the first time in years. Not because he was sad, but because someone had finally chosen him. Chapter 4. After the confrontation with consort Min, the entire palace changed. Servants who once ignored Leon suddenly bowed when he passed. Meals arrived warm, his courtyard was repaired, fresh blankets appeared overnight. Someone even replaced the cracked windows in his room. Leon stood in silence, staring at the changes. This feels illegal. His old servant nearly burst into tears. Your Highness, we finally have meat in the kitchen again. Leon rubbed his forehead tiredly. Because obviously all of this was Kang Hyun's doing. And honestly, that terrified him more than poverty ever had. The general was too overwhelming, too powerful, too intense. Leon didn't understand why someone like Kang Hyun kept looking at him with those quiet, dangerous eyes, as if he'd already decided Leon belonged beside him. It made Leon nervous, because nobody stayed forever, not in the palace, not in his life. Still that evening, he found himself walking toward the training grounds, just to accidentally see the general. I'm truly becoming hopeless. The sound of swords echoed across the grounds. Soldiers shouted while sparks flew beneath torchlight, and at the center of it all stood Kang Hyun. Sweat glistened against tanned skin. Black training robes clung to broad shoulders. His long hair was tied high while he sparred against 3 men simultaneously. Leon stopped breathing for a second, because the general looked unfairly attractive. Then Kang Hyun noticed him immediately. The general's expression changed instantly. Softer, warmer. Like he'd been waiting for him, the soldiers froze in horror, because their terrifying commander was smiling. Again. Kang Hyun lowered his sword and walked directly toward Leon. You came, Leon tried, sounding calm. I was passing by. You walked across the entire palace. I enjoy walking. You hate exercise. Leon stared. How do you know that? You complain every time stairs appear. You notice that? I notice everything about you. Silence. Dangerous silence. Leon's ears turned red immediately. Kang Hyun looked completely serious, which somehow made it worse. One of the younger soldiers suddenly whispered, "The general's flirting." Another whispered back, "He's terrible at it." Kang Hyun slowly turned toward them. The soldiers vanished instantly. Leon burst into laughter. Real laughter. Bright enough to stop Kang Hyun's heartbeat entirely. And for the first time in years, the Wolf General wanted peace more than war. Chapter 5. The Emperor summoned Leon 3 days later, which was strange, terrifying, and absolutely suspicious. Leon knelt inside the throne room while ministers lined both sides of the hall. At the very top, the Emperor finally looked at him properly for the first time in years. Cold eyes, lazy expression, completely unreadable. You've become popular recently. Leon lowered his gaze. This consort apologizes. The Emperor laughed quietly. You think I called you here to punish you? Historically speaking, yes. Several ministers nearly choked. The Emperor actually smiled slightly. You're more amusing than I remembered. Leon personally wished to disappear, especially because he could feel Kang Hyun staring at him from nearby like an overprotective wolf ready to bite someone. The Emperor leaned against his throne. Tell me, Leon. Yes, Your Majesty? Do you like Kang Hyun? The entire court froze. Leon nearly ascended from embarrassment. What? Even Kang Hyun looked startled. The Emperor looked entertained for the first time all morning. Well? Leon's brain completely malfunctioned, because how was he supposed to answer that? No? That would sound like rejection. Yes, that would sound insane. So unfortunately, his mouth betrayed him. The general is very large. Silence. Then several ministers coughed violently and tried not to laugh. Kang Hyun stared directly at Leon. Large? Leon wanted death immediately. I didn't mean it like that. The Emperor finally burst into laughter. Actual laughter, the kind that echoed through the throne room. And just like that, the rumors spread across the entire capital. The forsaken consort who called the Wolf General very large. Leon did not leave his room for 2 entire days afterward. Chapter 6. Kang Hyun climbed through Leon's window at midnight. Like a criminal. A very large criminal. Leon nearly screamed when a dark figure suddenly entered his room. What in heavens? Shh. Kang Hyun? The general calmly closed the window behind himself. You've been avoiding me. Because I embarrassed myself before the entire imperial court. You called me large. I know. Kang Hyun looked thoughtful. I liked it. Leon covered his face with a pillow. This is a nightmare. The general sat beside him quietly. The bed dipped beneath his weight. And suddenly the room felt much smaller. Leon slowly lowered the pillow. You shouldn't sneak into palace rooms. I wanted to see you. At midnight? You avoid me during the day. Leon opened his mouth, then closed it again. Because annoyingly, that was true. Kang Hyun reached toward him slowly, gentle despite his rough hands. His fingers brushed loose strands of hair from Leon's face. You've been nervous around me. Leon's heartbeat stumbled. Anyone would be nervous around you. Because I'm a general? Because you look at me like you want to eat me alive. Kang Hyun went very still, then quietly answered, Maybe I do. Leon stopped breathing. The candlelight flickered softly between them. Neither moved, neither spoke. And then Kang Hyun leaned closer, slowly giving Leon time to pull away. But Leon didn't move, didn't run, didn't stop him. So the general kissed him, softly, like something precious. Leon's mind went completely blank, because nobody had ever kissed him gently before. Not once. When Kang Hyun finally pulled back, Leon looked stunned. The general's voice lowered. Tell me to stop. Leon stared at him silently for several seconds, then quietly whispered, "Don't." And that was the exact moment Kang Hyun fell completely, hopelessly in love. Chapter 7. Dating the Wolf General secretly was impossible. Mostly because Kang Hyun was terrible at hiding affection. Absolutely terrible. Leon would casually mention being cold, and somehow 12 fur cloaks appeared. Leon once stared at a dessert for 2 seconds too long. The entire restaurant was bought before dinner ended. One rainy afternoon, Leon simply said flowers smelled nice. The next morning, his entire courtyard looked like a royal garden exploded. Kang Hyun, yes, there are at least 500 flowers outside. You like flowers? I meant normal amounts of flowers. The general looked confused. This is normal. For who? The emperor owns mountains. That is not helping your argument. The servants nearby were trying not to laugh themselves unconscious. And honestly, Leon wanted to laugh too, because despite Kang Hyun's terrifying reputation, the general loved with the subtlety of a charging warhorse. It was ridiculous, overwhelming, and embarrassingly sweet, which became a problem because Leon was starting to depend on him. And that terrified him more than anything, because happiness never stayed. Not for people like him. That night Leon woke from a nightmare's shaking. Old memories, lonely winters, cruel words, years of believing nobody would ever choose him. He quietly sat outside beneath the cold night sky trying to calm down. Then warmth settled over his shoulders. Kang Hyun draped a fur cloak around him silently before sitting beside him. You disappeared from bed. Leon stared ahead quietly. Sorry, the general frowned. Why apologize? Leon hesitated, then softly admitted, I keep waiting for this to end. Kang Hyun went still. Leon laughed weakly. Ridiculous, right? No. Leon's chest hurt unexpectedly, because Kang Hyun understood too quickly, too easily. The general reached for his hand, large fingers intertwining carefully with his own. I spent most of my life on battlefields, Kang Hyun murmured quietly. People only waited for me to die. Leon looked toward him slowly. Kang Hyun's eyes softened. So if you're asking whether I'll leave you behind? The general kissed his knuckles gently. I'd rather die first. Leon immediately teared up. Why would you say something that romantic so casually? Kang Hyun looked genuinely confused. It was romantic? You're impossible, and you love me anyway. Unfortunately, that was true. Chapter 8. The assassination attempt happened during the winter banquet. 1 second music filled the palace hall. The next blood stained the floor. Leon barely had time to react before Kang Hyun grabbed him violently against his chest. An arrow slammed into the pillar behind where Leon had been sitting moments earlier. Screams erupted. Ministers ran, guards drew swords, and Kang Hyun looked murderous. The general held Leon so tightly it almost hurt. You're bleeding. Leon blinked. A small cut lined his cheek from the shattered wine cup beside him. That's barely. Kang Hyun's expression darkened further. The assassin did not survive long enough to explain himself. Neither did the people who hired him. By sunrise 3 corrupt ministers were executed publicly. The entire capital shook in fear, because the Wolf General had finally snapped, and everyone knew why. Leon found Kang Hyun standing alone later that night. Silent, covered in blood that wasn't his. The general looked exhausted, angry, terrified. When Kang Hyun finally spoke, his voice sounded rough. I almost lost you. Leon's chest tightened painfully. You didn't. I could have. The general's hands shook slightly. That scared Leon more than the attack itself, because Kang Hyun never shook. Never. Leon slowly stepped closer, then wrapped his arms around him carefully. You idiot, Leon whispered softly. I'm still here. Kang Hyun buried his face against his shoulder silently. And for the first time, the feared Wolf General allowed himself to feel afraid. Chapter 9. Spring arrived quietly, and with it peace. For once, the palace felt warm instead of cruel. Leon sat beneath blooming cherry trees while reading. Kang Hyun rested nearby with his head in Leon's lap, pretending not to nap. You're drooling. I survived wars. That doesn't answer my statement. I survived beautifully. Leon rolled his eyes affectionately. The general opened one eye lazily, then suddenly asked, "Marry me." Leon blinked. What? I already asked the emperor. What? He approved. Kang Hyun. The general looked entirely calm. As my future husband, you shouldn't yell. Leon stared at him in complete disbelief. You proposed while half asleep? I've wanted to marry you for months. That's not the issue. Kang Hyun sat up slowly, then took Leon's hands carefully, and suddenly the teasing disappeared. The general's voice lowered softly. I spent my whole life fighting wars for a country that never felt like home. Leon's breath caught. Kang Hyun kissed his hands gently. Then I met you. The cherry blossoms drifted softly around them. And now nowhere feels right unless you're there too. Leon immediately started crying. Why are you good at this now? Kang Hyun smiled quietly. Because loving you taught me. Chapter 10. Preparations for the wedding spread across the empire like wildfire. The wolf general was getting married. Not to a noble heir, not to a princess from another kingdom, but to the forgotten consort nobody had protected for years. The capital nearly lost its mind. Leon personally wanted to disappear underground forever, especially because Kang Hyun became even worse after the engagement. Far worse. The general had apparently decided future husband meant he could openly flirt at all times. In front of servants, in front of ministers, even in front of the emperor. Leon was suffering. Deeply. Kang Hyun. Yes? Stop staring at me like that. The general rested his chin against one hand lazily. You're pretty. We are in the middle of a military meeting. You're still pretty. Several commanders quietly lowered their heads, trying not to laugh. Leon's ears burned red. The emperor looked exhausted. General Kang. Yes, your majesty? If you flirt one more time during court, I will personally send you back to the northern border. Kang Hyun looked completely calm. I can flirt there too. Leon covered his face immediately. This is humiliating. The emperor sighed. You created this problem yourself. I did not. Unfortunately, nobody believed him anymore. That night Leon escaped to the palace gardens, hoping for peace. Instead, he found Kang Hyun already waiting beside the lotus pond. Moonlight reflected against dark water, while flower lanterns drifted quietly across the surface. The general looked unfairly handsome beneath silver light. Leon walked over slowly. You planned this? Yes. Was the romantic atmosphere necessary? Very. Leon sat beside him quietly. For a moment, neither spoke. The palace felt far away tonight. No politics, no nobles, no expectations, just the sound of water and spring insects beneath the stars. Kang Hyun suddenly reached for his hand. Still careful. Always careful. Even now. Leon looked down softly at their intertwined fingers. You know, he murmured, I used to think nobody would ever choose me first. Kang Hyun's expression changed instantly. The general turned toward him fully. Leon. It's fine now. No. Kang Hyun's voice lowered. It isn't. Leon blinked. The general gently touched his cheek. You spent years believing love had to be earned through suffering. Leon's throat tightened painfully. Kang Hyun looked at him like something precious. But I loved you from the moment you laughed at me in the corridor. Leon's eyes widened slightly. You remember that? I remember everything. The general leaned forward slowly, then kissed him beneath the moonlight soft enough to make Leon's chest ache. I will spend the rest of my life proving you were always worth loving. And honestly, that kiss nearly killed him. Chapter 11. Leon discovered very quickly that Kang Hyun became unbearably affectionate whenever tired. It started after the general returned from a week-long border inspection. The moment Kang Hyun entered their residence, he wrapped himself around Leon like a massive exhausted wolf and refused to let go. Kang Hyun. Silence. You're crushing me. Still silence. Leon sighed while trying to move. The general only held him tighter. Did the border inspections go badly? A low, tired voice answered against his shoulder. I missed you. Leon immediately softened, because despite his terrifying reputation, Kang Hyun became strangely clingy whenever emotionally exhausted. The general buried his face against Leon's neck quietly. The bed was cold. Leon's heartbeat stumbled slightly. You're acting spoiled. You spoiled me. That sounds fake. It's true. Leon laughed softly despite himself, then carefully ran fingers through Kang Hyun's hair. The general melted instantly, completely shamelessly. Huh, you really are like a giant wolf, Leon murmured. Kang Hyun lazily kissed his collarbone. Only for you. Leon nearly died, because the general's deep, sleepy voice should genuinely be illegal. Later that night, rain poured softly against the windows, while candlelight flickered through the room. Kang Hyun lay beside him, quietly watching Leon read. Not speaking, just looking. Leon finally sighed. You're staring again. You're beautiful. You say that every day. It's true, every day. Leon lowered his book slowly. How are you not embarrassed saying things like that? Kang Hyun looked thoughtful. Because you're my future husband. That doesn't answer the question. The general suddenly moved closer, close enough that Leon could feel warmth radiating from him. Then very gently Kang Hyun kissed the corner of his mouth. You blush whenever I flirt. And I enjoy it. Leon shoved his face into a pillow immediately. This relationship is unfair. Kang Hyun laughed quietly, the sound warm enough to fill the entire room. And Leon realized something terrifying. He'd become addicted to hearing it. Chapter 12. The wedding robes arrived 3 weeks before the ceremony. Entire rooms filled with silk, gold embroidery, hand-stitched dragons and silver wolves woven together across layers of black and crimson fabric. Leon stared in horror. These probably cost more than my entire existence? The royal tailor looked offended. Your Highness, these are priceless. That is not comforting. Unfortunately, Kang Hyun looked completely obsessed the moment Leon tried them on. The general stopped breathing entirely. Leon adjusted the heavy sleeves awkwardly. Why are you staring? Kang Hyun looked genuinely stunned. You look like you were carved from heaven. Leon almost tripped immediately. You cannot just say things like that. I'm saying less than I'm thinking. That's worse. The servants nearby started pretending not to exist. Because watching the feared wolf general stare at his fiancée with obvious devotion felt strangely intimate. Kang Hyun walked toward him slowly, then stopped directly in front of him. For a moment, the teasing disappeared again. Only warmth remained. The general carefully fixed a loose strand of Leon's hair, his rough fingers impossibly gentle. You're nervous, Kang Hyun murmured softly. Leon looked away. What if I disappoint you? Kang Hyun's entire expression shattered. Leon! The general sounded genuinely hurt. You could never disappoint me. Leon swallowed quietly. Kang Hyun stepped even closer. Close enough that their foreheads touched. I survived battlefields covered in blood, the general whispered. Yet somehow the thought of you doubting my love hurts worse. Leon's eyes stung unexpectedly. Kang Hyun kissed him slowly, tenderly, like he was trying to pour every unspoken feeling into one kiss. When they finally separated, Leon looked breathless. The general smiled faintly. There. There what? Now you remember how loved you are. Leon immediately started crying again. This is your fault. Yes. And you sound happy about it. I am. Chapter 13. The night before the wedding, Leon couldn't sleep. Too nervous, too overwhelmed, too afraid happiness might disappear if he looked away for even a second. So quietly he slipped outside beneath the midnight sky. The palace gardens glowed silver beneath moonlight. Cherry blossoms drifted softly through the air, and somehow Kang Hyun was already there, waiting. Leon narrowed his eyes suspiciously. Do you secretly follow me everywhere? Yes. That was too fast. The general smiled slightly, then opened his arms silently. Leon walked into them without hesitation, because by now Kang Hyun felt safer than breathing. The general wrapped warm arms around him while they stood beneath the blossoms quietly. I couldn't sleep either, Kang Hyun admitted. Leon rested against his chest. Nervous? A little. The wolf general gets nervous? You're more frightening than war. Leon burst into laughter. The sound echoed softly through the garden. Kang Hyun looked down at him with so much affection it almost hurt to witness, then quietly said, Tomorrow the entire empire will know you're mine. Leon's face turned red immediately. You sound terrifying when you say it like that. Kang Hyun kissed his forehead gently. Then let me say it differently. The general tilted his chin upward carefully, eyes soft beneath moonlight. Tomorrow, Kang Hyun whispered, I finally get to spend the rest of my life loving you openly. Leon's chest tightened painfully, because nobody had ever loved him this carefully before. Not once. His voice came out quiet. You really love me that much? Kang Hyun looked almost offended. Leon! Then the general held his face gently between both hands. I would burn kingdoms for you. Leon blinked slowly. That was romantic for about 3 seconds. I can make it worse. Please don't. Kang Hyun laughed softly, then kissed him beneath falling cherry blossoms, slow and deep and full of love, so overwhelming, Leon forgot every lonely year before this one. And for the first time in his life, Leon stopped being afraid of tomorrow. Chapter 14, the wedding day arrived with golden sunlight. The entire capital celebrated from sunrise. Lanterns covered every street. Flower petals rained from rooftops. Even the common people gathered outside palace gates hoping to witness the legendary ceremony, because everyone wanted to see the man who had stolen the wolf general's heart. Leon personally wanted to hide forever. These robes weigh more than I do. The royal attendants laughed softly while adjusting layers of black and crimson silk around him. Gold embroidery shimmered against the fabric like living fire. His long hair was tied with silver jade ornaments, while delicate chains draped across his shoulders. Leon barely recognized himself in the mirror. I look expensive. You look breathtaking, one servant whispered honestly. Leon's chest tightened unexpectedly. Years ago, nobody in the palace would have looked at him kindly. Now their eyes held genuine warmth. Not pity, not mockery, warmth. Because somewhere along the way, Leon had stopped being the forgotten consort and become deeply loved. The door suddenly opened. A young servant nearly stumbled inside. Your Highness, the general is trying to enter early again. Leon immediately covered his face. Again? He says waiting is cruel. That sounds exactly like him. Meanwhile, Kang Hyun was indeed arguing with royal officials. I should see him. You will see him during the ceremony. That is too long. It has been 15 minutes. An unbearable 15 minutes. Several ministers looked exhausted already. The emperor himself finally sighed from his throne nearby. General Kang. Yes, Your Majesty? If you destroy wedding traditions today, I will cancel your honeymoon personally. Kang Hyun immediately went silent. The emperor smirked slightly. Thought so. Hours later, the ceremony finally began. Music echoed through the palace courtyard, while nobles and royals filled both sides of the golden walkway, and at the very end Kang Han stood waiting. The moment he saw Leon, the entire world disappeared. The general forgot the crowd, forgot the palace, forgot how to breathe, because Leon looked unreal beneath sunlight, beautiful enough to make kingdoms fall. Leon slowly walked toward him, beneath drifting flower petals, nervous, flustered, trying very hard not to trip. Then Kang Han smiled, softly, warmly, only for him. And suddenly Leon wasn't nervous anymore. When they finally stood face to face, the general quietly whispered, You came. Leon laughed softly. You say that every time you see me. And every time feels unreal. The ceremony continued around the vows, blessings, royal traditions. But honestly, Leon barely remembered any of it afterward. Because Kang Hyun never stopped looking at him like he was the most precious thing in the world. And maybe for the first time, Leon finally believed it too. Chapter 15. Marriage changed absolutely nothing, except somehow Kang Hyun became even more affectionate, which Leon had previously believed impossible. It turned out the general loved casually touching him at all times, holding hands during meetings, pulling Leon into his lap whenever possible, kissing his forehead randomly during conversations. One minister accidentally witnessed Kang Hyun fixing Leon's robes while listening to military reports and looked spiritually destroyed afterward. Leon suffered greatly. Kang Hyun. Yes, husband. Stop saying husband like that. The general looked innocent. Like what? Like you're proud of it. I am proud of it. Leon immediately lost the argument. Again. That winter, snow covered the capital quietly. Leon stood outside watching flakes drift through the night sky while warm lantern light glowed behind him. Then familiar warmth wrapped around his shoulders. Kang Hyun draped a fur cloak over him before pulling him gently against his chest. You'll get cold. Leon relaxed instantly into the embrace. You always say that, because you ignore your health. I was outside for 1 minute. A dangerous minute. Leon laughed softly. For a while they simply stood together beneath falling snow. Peaceful, comfortable, like this had always been meant to happen. Then Kang Hyun suddenly spoke quietly. Do you remember what you said to me the first night we met? Leon thought for a moment. That humans can't rip throats out with their teeth? The general looked deeply offended. That rumor followed me for years. Because it sounds ridiculous. It only happened once. Leon slowly turned toward him. What? Kang Hyun immediately coughed. That isn't important. Leon stared for several seconds, then burst into uncontrollable laughter. The general sighed dramatically while pulling him closer. You're laughing at your husband. You admitted it so casually. You married me anyway. Leon smiled into his shoulder softly. Yeah, and honestly, he would choose Kang Hyun again in every lifetime. Final chapter. Years later, people across the empire still told stories about the wolf general and his beloved husband. Some stories exaggerated wildly. Others claimed their love was blessed by the heavens themselves. Children listened wide-eyed to tales of the terrifying general who conquered battlefields only to become helplessly soft for one man. But inside the palace, their life together remained surprisingly simple. Warm mornings, shared meals, late-night conversations beneath lantern light. Kang Hyun still looked at Leon like he hung the stars in the sky, and Leon still blushed whenever he noticed. One spring evening, they returned to the old abandoned courtyard where Leon once lived alone. The palace had restored it beautifully over the years. Cherry blossoms now filled the garden. Warm lanterns glowed beneath the trees. No more broken windows. No more cold, empty silence. Leon stood quietly beneath the blossoms. It feels strange. Kang Hyun walked beside him slowly. What does? I used to think this place would become my grave someday. The general's expression tightened immediately. Leon smiled softly before continuing. But now when I look at it, he turned toward Kang Hyun. I only remember the day you first chose me. For a moment, Kang Hyun said nothing. Then he gently took Leon's hand. I'll keep choosing you, the general murmured quietly, every day for the rest of our lives. Leon's chest ached painfully with love. Even after all these years, Kang Hyun still spoke like that so naturally. The general reached up slowly, fingers brushing gently against Leon's cheek. You know, Kang Hyun admitted softly, I used to think war was the only thing I would ever understand. Leon looked at him quietly. Kang Hyun smiled faintly. Then you laughed at me over spilled soup. Leon immediately laughed again. And now? The general leaned forward, resting his forehead gently against Leon's. Now, Kang Hyun whispered, loving you is the easiest thing I've ever done. The cherry blossoms drifted softly around them. Warm wind carried the scent of spring through the quiet courtyard, and as Kang Hyun kissed him beneath the falling petals, Leon realized something beautiful. For the first time in his life, he was no longer surviving. He was finally completely loved.